I was sitting here thinking, how do I introduce someone that is beyond words? She is a force and an energy. And it's really hard to put that in words. I can say she's very conscious. She's a teacher. She is a demonstration. She's an initiator. My God, she's an initiator. One thing and then another thing and then another thing. So it really is difficult. I can tell most of you know her, are familiar with her at least. And she did make an effort to run for our president last time, and it was certainly a major loss for all of us that she didn't make it. But her voice has maintained its resilience, shall we say, throughout this time. And so it's always a pleasure and an honor when I'm tapped on the shoulder by my friend Audrey, whether it's an introduction or sharing a panel with her. We've known each other, I don't know now, is it 10 or 15 years? It goes back a bit. We met, I think was it at Marianne Williamson's, I think, her sister Giant. And then we saw each other again at the Parliament of Religions, and then again at the Parliament of Religion. So we have met in person, which is really nice. But unfortunately, we're not that close to maintain that part of it. But at any rate, that's all I can say, I think, for the moment. It's my pleasure to be here. And here she is.
Thank you,
Audrey.
Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you so much. There's a backstory here that I must share first. Before I do that, I want to acknowledge a friend and a colleague, Robert Porter-Lintz, that's on, and just bring him into this gathering. His presence is very meaningful to me as I go forward with this message. I just want to share that Samara and Doran, this is really emotional, and Cliff called, well, I got a phone call. I was living in Ojai. My son had flown into town and I wanted him to see my new office. It was a Sunday. So I was sitting in my office on Mother's Day, May 2015, and the phone rings and a woman goes, "You don't know me, but my name is Samara Shaw. I'm coming in from Washington State with a message for you. I need to meet you. I don't know where I got your phone number, but I need to meet you." So I hung up and I said to my son, "Another quack." So a couple days later, she calls, and I'm home, and she says, "The three of us are on the phone now. We want to talk to you." And I go, "The three of you?" So Doran introduces himself, Samara, and Cliff. And they tell me they want to meet me at my office. And so I say, okay. So when they showed up at my office, I had ordered some food, and we spent 2 or 3 hours, and nothing seemed to happen that made any sense to me. You know, I can be extremely focused when I'm working and agenda oriented and very time oriented. And so nothing seemed to happen. And they said, "Can we come back tomorrow?" And I was like, "What for?" And so I agreed for them to come back the next day. And before I finish this message, I'll tell you what happened the next day. But they are very much a part of this. So in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. And you can't discover something where people are already there. Grandmother April, I bow to you. And so the Europeans showed up. Columbus was not a nice person. He was not a righteous man, creative, brilliant, adventurous for sure, but he was a rapist and a murderer. And so our children are taught to sing in 1492, "Columbus sailed the ocean blue and discovered America." That's a lie, the first lie of many lies that this country has been built upon. It is possible to fly into the US from another country and stay 2 or 3 weeks without any awareness of the role that the indigenous people, First People, and African Americans played in this country. Our presence, our work, our contributions have been stolen, diminished, marginalized. And so it's easy to blame Donald Trump, and he deserves quite a bit of blame, but I don't want us to lose sight of how we got here, how our history as a very corrupt nation, a very dishonest nation that has used domination, aggression, greed, and control to conquer the world. And for the most part, if we're to be honest, that has been perfectly all right with most of us most of the time. Because as Grandfather Leroy pointed out, as long as we have what we want and a little bit of what we need, we really don't care. And so I want us first to accept responsibility that in a democracy, the citizens must play a part. In order to participate in a democracy, we have to be informed. And most Americans are not informed. Most Americans don't have a clue. And so I'm here to announce that I'm entering the race for president of the United States of America as a Republican. I am challenging Donald Trump.
Right.
And I want you to listen to me carefully, because what I'm going to say is not going to make a lot of sense to the status quo. I think Nancy Pelosi deserves to be Woman of the Year or Woman of the Lifetime, and I am committed that we kick Mitch McConnell out to retire him and Lindsey Graham and give the Senate back to the Democrats. And for the first time, you will have a Republican president with some sense, with some integrity, with a vision, and some ability to be your president, working closely with the Democratic Congress and Senate. We have been manipulated, we have been brainwashed, we have been hypnotized. And let me explain. When I ran in 2016, Marilyn was the first one that asked me what my platform was. I've learned a lot since then. And the one thing we will not do going forward is have insane conversations. Pro-choice and pro-life is insanity. It's bullshit made up by white men. And there's no nice way to say that. Let me explain. A woman's right to decide what happens to her body is not a political issue. It would never have been a political issue if men were not in charge. And so not only has it been made a political issue, but we discuss it saying that they are pro-life and we are pro-choice. What is pro-life about the current Republican Party and administration? And so why do we continue to engage in conversations that are based upon gross insanity? They're designed to keep us going round and round and round in circles. If you truly believe that the next president of the United States of America needs to be a white man, raise your hand. I don't think there's anyone above the age of 5 can honestly say that the predicament that we're in, the crisis we're now facing, can be solved by a white man. Simply because the face of the system up until now has been white men. And let me be clear, yes, it is a system. And white men have participated in this system. And so the ideas, the information, the vision, the wisdom, the understanding of how to get from here where we need to go is not given to white men. Unless they are awake and aware and conscious. And many, many, many are. But the ones in power are not. And so for us to go until November pretending to get rid of Donald Trump and place a Democrat in the White House is going to solve our problems. We are delusional, and we're playing into the game that they have designed. As your president, we're going to rename the White House as the People's House. And we're going to move it out of DC, break up the old boys network and move it to New York. And we're going to have a summer house in Naples where we do business for the government in Naples, Florida. We're going to decentralize, shake up, and disrupt the old boys network. We have the power to do this, you know. We're going to add 3, 4, 5 more people to the Supreme Court. We have the power to do that. Do you know that? We have the power to add people to the Supreme Court. We're also going to come up with term limits. Nobody should serve on the Supreme Court for life. We have some dinosaurs And one gentleman who served on the Supreme Court for a long, long time passed away. And right before he passed away, he said something that really helped me to understand just how pernicious white supremacy is. He was overseeing a case about affirmative action. And he said, what have we learned? Haven't we learned that Black people don't do well in Ivy League schools? Haven't we learned that they do better in all Black institutions? Haven't we learned after all this time that affirmative action doesn't work? And you see, there are some loving liberals and progressives who are not aware just how deeply steeped you are in white supremacy. A wonderful couple that supported my work, my prison work for years. The wife called me up and said she wanted to talk with me. She was alarmed. She wanted to know why any intelligent Black person would send their child to a historic Black university when the child could go to Harvard or Yale. You see, this is the myth of white supremacy. What happened with affirmative action did not say that we white folks don't know what we're doing. It did not say that European values are not the most important values or the greatest values. It did not say that the educational system in America is lacking. It said because you Black people have been left out and marginalized, you need our help. And so we got bused to schools when we were in Black schools with Black teachers. And we learned about Columbus. And we learned very little about ourselves. And we have a prison population now that's disproportionately Black. We can change this. I want to briefly tell you how this is going to unfold. This is the people's movement. Audrey being president is about each and every one of you stepping up saying, this is my country. I have something to say. I have become aware and I have important information on certain issues. On the 4th of July, that entire week, we will do a formal launch. We will have virtual gatherings all over this country with music, with dance, with Native American, with ceremony, with blessings. We'll have town hall meetings. This is grassroots. I want every little Black boy, every little Native American boy, every little Latino boy to know that America is their country and that they matter. I want every marginalized, disabled, blind, deaf person who has been marginalized to know that America is your country. I want every white person who has been made to believe that your story did not matter, that somehow my story was more important than yours. I want you to know that your story matters. I want you to know that every story matters. No story is more important than the other. We have a lot of healing to do. I was awakened in 1999 from a deep sleep. I'm almost finished, but this is important. And I heard a deep voice, go tell my people it is time to forgive. And I sat up in the bed screaming, hell no. I heard it 3 times. By now, I'm out of the bed dropping F-bombs, running all, and by the way, I promised Jesus I was gonna stop cursing. Y'all gonna have to help me. Anyway, thank God I lived alone. That night, I was chained in the bottom of a slave ship. I can't explain it to you. I'm simply telling you what happened. I was chained in the bottom of a slave ship, and I smelled death. I smelled the smell of blood and feces, of dead corpse, the sound of bodies being thrown overboard. So I know what we're being asked to forgive. When I finally stopped cussing and screaming and ranting and fell on the floor and listened, this is what I heard. This was August or September 1999. Listen. Go tell my people it's time to forgive, because there will come a time in America that if America is to survive, it will be because of Black people. Black people are in America because America needs your wisdom, needs your soul, needs your heart, needs your passion. Slavery in the long view of history was not a mistake. That's what I heard. I'm only telling you what I heard. There was a grand picture, a design in place. The message was 3 parts. After go tell my people it's time to forgive, because We cannot step into a place of power if we've not done the work of forgiveness. We cannot offer our gifts to America. We cannot lead with justice and righteousness if we haven't forgiven. The second part was go tell my people, white people, stop pretending you don't have privilege. You have it for a reason. You have it to own it, to use it in service to all humanity rising. And this is the time for white people to use your power. The third message was to the Christian church. You're lying. Jesus has nothing to do with this. Stop it. You're causing wars and you're hurting people. Stop it. Well, I had just left seminary, so my best girlfriends were black women from seminary, and everybody told me the same thing. Hell no, you ain't preaching that from my pulpit. But that was the beginning of Healing Soul of America. That was the beginning of my own healing. I'm still in process. I thought I was the most forgiving person in the world. What I can tell you, since November, I have been through hell. I did not want to do this again. I wanted no part of doing this again. In November, a physical being dropped into my den and said to me, you must do this. A physical being. That has never happened to me before. Since that time, I have been awakened from a deep sleep and caught up in spirit. And I've been given very clear visions and instructions about how and what needs to happen for our country to go forward. Every aspect from foreign. First of all, we're going to drop the sanctions against Iran. We're going to drop the sanctions against Iran because they're hurting the Iranian people. We're going to go back to the bargaining table and revisit the agreement that was put in place by Obama. We're going to, with women, my cabinet will be made up 70% women. I promise you that. You have my word that 70% of my cabinet will be women. Will be women. This is the only way that we're going to move out of this consciousness of war, aggression, domination, and greed. Women have to have the power, have to have the authority, and have to have the space. The role that each of us will play. Each of you have answers. Each of you have wisdom. Each of you have knowledge. I am no more important than any of you. I might be a little braver, maybe just a little bit, but I'm also shaking here. Believe me, I'm shaking. I'm shivering. But each of you have wisdom. Each of you brings something that only you can bring. And so I need each of us to ignite that in yourself and in every other American. When we look anyone in the eye, even if virtually, we want to call forth from within them the power of the spirit of the divine that lives in them. We want to forget about the past to the extent that my campaign is not talking about Donald Trump. My campaign is talking about the way forward and the role that each of us will play and the changes we're going to make. And what I'm sensing is a revival, folks. Today or yesterday was Pentecost. And when the day of Pentecost had come, the power of the Holy Spirit, the entire universe is aligned. I have been shown in the spirit that any barrier, any obstacle has already been removed. It is not my concern or your concern to figure out how this is going to happen. I assure you that with your support, I'm going to be your next president with your support. The way has already been cleared. What pushed me to say yes is this pandemic and with the killing of Black men. First of all, the pandemic, I have lost 10 to 15 people in my family, my community, my tribe. It has been so painful. My sister right now is on life support. My nephew lost 3 members of his family within 7 days. My children lost their father. No funeral. They received his ashes in the mail. The pandemic has impacted us all, but we are still being lied to. Nobody really knows the truth about this pandemic. Nobody really knows enough to protect ourselves, to protect our families. One of the things that has to change is the way information is sent out with so much, and it's intentional, with so much information, we do not know what to believe and who to believe. So one of the first things we're going to begin to do together is to look for and dig for the facts, and to the best of our ability, share accurate information with the American people. I don't know the truth about the pandemic. I know that America has a really nasty history, but I know that there's a disproportionate number of people of color that are impacted. 40% of the dead are Black people. Now, a lot of this is environmental racism. You know, I've been blessed to live in the suburbs most of my life. I wasn't born in the suburbs, though. I was born in the Bronx, 9 people in 3 rooms. And I know about environmental racism. And so the pandemic has pushed me in ways that I cannot explain. My heart has been broken. And then the execution over and over again of Black men by police. The criminal justice system in this country must be disrupted, turned upside down. The next attorney general does not work for me, the president. The attorney general works for the people. The Justice Department represents the people. We must get these men and women out of jail that are in prison for nonviolent crimes. Private prisons for profit has to end, or either you all are going to own them. And they're going to be rehabilitation centers where people are in there for a brief period of time and they enter into society and become productive members of society. Labeling people a felon 20 years after they've done their time, that has to stop. That has to end. The criminal justice system has been designed. First, it starts with the education system, which was designed to create a labor force. Understand that. Our educational system was designed to create a labor force. The prison industrial system is just another form of slavery. Just another form of slavery. And so until we look at our education system is so far behind most countries. Why do we need a child 6 years old to sit for 5 hours and look at some teacher? Why can't they be outside? Why can't learning be experiential? These are things that we have the power to change. And we have the power to change them in the next few years. Because why? Because the answers are already here. The answers are already with the American people. But we have not had a space or a platform, and we have not believed in ourselves and our ability to know that we had something to offer. Let me close by saying when Samara and Doran and Cliff came back the next day, Doran says to Samara, you promised to tell her. And those who know Samara know that Samara, when she doesn't know what to do, she gets this 5-year-old girl, this 5-year-old really beautiful look on her face. And so Doran is sitting across the room and he's yelling, you said you were going to tell her, Samara. And Samara, and I'm looking at Samara and I'm looking at Cliff and I'm thinking these people are crazy. Now there's one thing I left out. I have a friend, Marsha Morena, an attorney, who had told me a long time ago she was atheist, but for some reason she wanted to be in the office this day. So she was sitting there. So finally Samara blurts out that an African-American woman is going to be president of the United States of America. She brings this country together with the message of unity and love. Well, I was told that 20 years before and had never uttered a word to anyone except one person 20 years ago. Never uttered it to husbands, lovers, children, best friends. I had never uttered the word in 20 years. Well, when they said that, Marsha Morena, the atheist, said, and this is the second coming of Christ. And I said, y'all need to leave. I need to go home. I'm having a major panic attack. My heart was beating so, I'm literally jumping out of my body. There's no way to explain this. There's no way to explain it. Something that I had carried for 20 years and only have mentioned it to one person 20 years ago. But before they showed up, again, Jesus was not leaving me alone, constantly telling me that I needed to do this. Well, when I said, you guys really need to leave, I need to go home. When I got home, I shut myself up in the room. I don't remember eating much or sleeping much. When I finally sat up in the bed and I said, Jesus, a couple of days later, is there anyone else? Is there anyone else? And Jesus said, no. I said, I'll go. and the light came on in my room. The whole room was filled with light. And I heard Dr. King said, I've been to the mountaintop. I looked over and I saw the promised land. And we as a people will make it to the promised land. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. That's what I heard that day. And so I ran, and the people who said they were going to support me didn't. And I made a lot of mistakes. I wasn't in a place. I wasn't where I am now. That was a dress rehearsal. And I still didn't want to step up. But, you know, a lot of us are called to do a whole bunch of stuff we're not doing, right? And guess what I found out? When we don't use the energy we've been given, when we don't give to the world our gifts, it gets trapped. It shows up as financial issues. It shows up as pain in the body. It shows up as autoimmune diseases. I'm going to end by saying that I want this group to be a core group. I want the grandmothers and grandfathers. Bobido, Native American, who's now no longer with us. He met me when I first announced he came to South Central Los Angeles. He was very concerned about me. He spoke to me privately. He said I needed to be protected. But he said to me he wanted me to have groups of people that started in Washington State, another group that started in New York, a group that started in Los Angeles, and another group that started in New York. And he wanted the grandmothers and the grandfathers to touch every space of earth and bless the earth and heal the earth and pray for forgiveness and healing. He said, Audrey, please do this for me. Please do this. Samara's crying. She was there that day. Well, Bobido was gone, but we need to do that. And I don't know how we're going to do it with social distancing, but we're going to do it. Starting in August, we're going to start. We're starting in Washington, and we're starting in New York and Los Angeles. We're going all the way down and all the way across. And we're going to bless this earth, and we're going to heal this earth, and we're going to get to know people who don't agree with us, and we're going to get to know strangers, and we're going to hug, and we're going to love, and we're going to forgive. And what else you're going to do is you're going to dig deep, and you're going to give money, because this is going to take money. Your money is also your vote. And one of the ways in which the Republican Party has managed to stay in control is because they have the alt-right, which are the antichrist, but those people believe in giving money. They believe in giving money. And so we have to match that. This is grassroots. $5, $10, $15, $2. Dig deep, dig deep, dig deep. We need, because this is we need to form a committee. We need offices. Campaign funds can be used for setting that up. We need to put some money back into these communities that's been so ravaged by this pandemic. There's so many people that were never in this economic system in the first place, and they are further marginalized. Some of them didn't even get bonus checks or stimulus checks. We can put money where it's needed. We can use this campaign in ways that little bits of money go to people who are doing things. We can do this. I'm going to be hosting 2 to 3 times a week town hall meetings, circles. I want to know the issues you want to talk about. We're going to reframe these issues. I am for health care for all. I am not for forcing people who do not want Medicare to take it. And that's important. I'm never going to lie to you. I am never going to lie to you. You know, and the truth will set us free. First, it may piss you off. But the thing about it, you'll be able to tell me if I piss you off. I've heard that all of my life. And I will always be open, transparent. Marilyn, everyone who knows me knows that I'm teachable. I'm extremely teachable. I don't believe that we achieve freedom for anyone by taking freedom from somebody else. There's certain core values about this country that I cherish. With all that America is not, I love America. I am proud to be an American. And so to me, to say Medicare for all for people who don't want it, simply because they have to pay for people who need it, I will not vote for that. I will not say yes to that. However, medical insurance should not be for profit. If it is for profit, there has to be a nonprofit, a public option, because nobody should ever be deprived of health care. and the same quality health care as anybody else. And these are things that can be done. We are programmed to think about something in one way. You know, we don't live on streets that are black and white and right and wrong. Most of us live on a cul-de-sac called both and. And so to be able to hold two opposing thoughts in our mind at the same time and say, this is true and this is also true. This is also true. I don't want my great-grandchildren talking about food stamps or talking about, you know, social programs. I want them talking about the enterprises that they own and manage. I want them talking about the opportunities they created for other people. That's what I want. I don't want any original people banned to a reservation with women being raped and marginalized. First, the original people must be honored and brought into the center of this government because they have wisdom that none of us have. You have wisdom that none of us have, and America is suffering for the lack of that wisdom. Samara, I'm honored. Thank you. Robin, Valerie, Grandmother April, Deb, Doran, I love you. Grandfather Reagan, got to get to know you, and my dear friend Robert. Thank you so much. God bless you.